Welcome to another episode of MENable Matters with me, Steve Whitten. I'm delighted today to be joined by an absolute icon of the automotive industry. He's going to hate me for saying that, but I did say that I would big him up. This guy, we connected at an awards ceremony a few years ago, and we've kept in touch ever since. And I'm in awe of the work that he does because he's an absolute icon, as I said, throughout the automotive industry, and particularly in the garage repair sector. So if you haven't guessed already, my guest today is the garage inspector, Andy Savva. Andy, how are you, sir?
Good morning. That £50 note that I gave you at that awards ceremony has worked very, very well,
It
isn't
did
it?
all right, didn't it? How was that
Yeah,
for an intro? Was that okay?
yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Well, look, I'll tell you what. I've bigged you up a little bit, but tell us a little bit more in your own words about who you are, where you're from, what you do. If
What
you
I
want to make
do,
that last about
okay.
20 minutes, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah. So the garage inspector is a very passionate guy about the after sales sector. I've spent all my life from the age of 18 in the sector. It wasn't my chosen sector. I was one of those kids that wasn't very good at learning. And yet the aftermarket and the garage industry was the right place for you. You know, go and do your work environment in a garage. You know,
I think
and
that's a familiar story in the automotive industry, full stop, isn't it?
it is. And I still see many examples of when I visit colleges or sixth form centres or schools when I'm doing a presentation about the wonderful careers that you can have in the automotive sector, how kids are segregated into an area that I go into a room, and they say to me, "Oh, these kids are not going to really go to university. We thought the garage industry would be good for them." So I try and stick up in a professional manner for us, and that stigma has been around for years. And you know, I got into it because I was sort of pushed into it a little bit, and I've made the most of it, and I've learned the hard way. And I've had several garages throughout my life, mostly bad at the beginning, and then very good towards the latter part of my career. The game changer was for me was in 2005, I suppose, when I sold the last businesses, and I felt that I needed to go and educate myself a bit more. I tried to get some work in the after sales sector, the retail sector, because at the time I thought that that's the only way you're going to survive. Independence never had a future. I saw technology moving quite fast even then. And I thought the only way I can stay in this industry is really get into the retail side. And every time I went for a job, I was never given the chance because I didn't understand the makings of a dealership, you know. So I enrolled and did an automotive retail management degree at Loughborough University under Professor Jim Saker.
Yes, yeah, I know it well.
So, and I was there for 3 years with all the dealer groups, you know, all the big boys there for tick box exercise. And I felt a little bit, at the time, I felt a little bit in awe, you know, because I wasn't really made to feel very welcomed. Who was this independent chap coming into our environment, sort of thing? And but I stuck it out.
You're from the mucky end of the stick, really,
Yes,
aren't you?
I'm the mucky end. Yeah, so you know, it took time to build up relationships and move on. And I also got the opportunity while I was there to do some Lean Six Sigma and Black Belt training at the Nissan factory in Sunderland, which was the real game changer for me. Then, you know, during that period of uni, I'd spent 4.5 years while I was doing that, visiting some iconic after-sales centres around the country, thinking that these were our gods of our industry.
Yeah.
And what I saw, I used to go to the worst performing in CSI, because everyone's measured by CSI, you know, customer service index. And I'm sure that's a very similar way now. I used to go to these places and it was just madness. I felt it was absolute chaos. 80% of the problems that I saw and encountered were across the board. and it gets you thinking about, how does mental health begin? You know, where does
Right.
it evolve from?
Yeah. Yeah.
And having done that for about 4 or 5 years, I decided that I could do a better job.
Are
And
you
that was,
talking predominantly? Were these predominantly franchised
yeah, all
businesses?
franchises, you know,
Right.
Pendragons, Inchscapes, the
Yeah.
Marshalls, you know,
The big PLC groups.
big,
Yeah.
big PLC groups.
Hmm.
So I'll come back to that in a second, because I want to touch on a couple of points and give you some real, what I think are still valid and relative points that I
Hmm.
think increase the chances of people who work in these environments getting anxious,
Yes.
depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having done this for about 4 or 5 years, I then, had the evidence in front of me to say, you know what, it's time to go back and run an independent, but really do it properly.
Hmm.
I've learned from my mistakes. I've got a bit of academia now, and thus Brunswick Garage was born. And that was a fantastic business. It was, at that time, the biggest recession we saw, 2009. Trying to raise money. It was a huge project. Purchasing 90,000 square feet, splitting it up into different units, starting the garage from scratch, putting all the learning that I'd acquired into it, and it became a fantastic business. Great. I assembled a great team and gave them the environment to excel. Yes, there was pressure. Of course, there's pressure. And we sold that 4.5 years ago now. And then people started basically contacting me. We got known, the garage got known after about 2.5 years. So I became a member of the IAAF, the Independent Aftermarket Association Federation. I became vice president, was doing quite a lot of work with them. And then I started writing articles because people asked me for articles. And then I started to enjoy that work. And then it was like events like we met each other, or other automotive events where they wanted a keynote speaker as such. And when I sold Brunswick, I never had a real idea about what I was going to do, apart from knowing that I just wanted to help the independent sector.
Yep.
So I worked really hard for 18 months, 2 years, to put this course material together. And then I started offering these specific, unique training days centered around my experiences and what I learned, and expanding that to garage visits. And that's gone fabulously, well. And as you can see, I've got, 4 brand ambassador roles, which I'm very humbled and privileged to have with some global companies around the world.
Yep.
Gives me
Yep.
confidence, and it gives me an arena to be able to talk with confidence, and also give people, an idea about using quality products will actually help you in your environment. And I think it's an all-round package, I think. And when we think about mental health, it's a huge subject, and it's been accelerated during the last 12, 13 months because of COVID, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's me really in a nutshell. I'm really passionate about the after-sales sector. And just this morning, just to show you what happened this morning, there was a bit of chat on my Facebook group last night and the night before about some of the changes that have happened between the parts deliveries that my garage customers are getting from OE dealers. In particular, one, I'm not going to name them. So I reached out to the CEO, who we follow each other on Twitter, and I have to give it to him. This morning, I sent a tweet last night, and this morning, the first message back was from him. Dakash Gupta from Marshalls. I'll mention him because I think he deserves
You know what? I knew you were going to say that, because
the
minute you said, he responded straight away. I thought, there's only Dash are going to do that.
I know, and I reached out to another 2.
Yeah.
Right, and I had already sort of knew that. I thought out of the 3, who's going to reach out this morning? Spot on. I get a message from him, and that shows care and leadership from him.
100%.
Right, they are rivals to us in a sense, but I said to him, so we had a really, really positive interaction, and he's already spoken to his after sales director, and already copied me in And I've gone back to my group and saying, look, let's get the information and let's help these guys help us.
Mhm.
Because that adds to the stress of what they're going through.
Yeah,
The
100%.
stress ultimately leads to anxiety and then depression if you can't deal with things.
Yeah.
So I'll have to really, really thank him publicly for reaching out.
Now, you and I, Andy, had a good long chat. Well, we often chat anyway, but we had a good long chat a couple of weeks ago, and you were very open about some sort of issues that come under the heading of mental health that you've perhaps had yourself, and we talked about that. And
Yeah.
I know that recently you've had some challenges as well in
Yep.
within the family. So,
Yes.
you know, um, what I sense that that's done for you is giving you an empathy for where some of the guys and girls out there in the network are, particularly if you're an independent, you're working on your own, like you've just touched on, you're dealing with some of those issues that are imposed on you by the processes of the bigger businesses. So, talk us through, in your own words, what's happened for you and where that's positioned you in terms of your thinking.
So on a personal level, I suffered greatly in my early years with mental health, right? So I came from a broken family.
Hmm.
My father left my mother when I was 5, 6 years old. He went and became a monk in Greece.
Hmm.
Um, my mother then left me when I was 11. I was the only child at the time. So, I got taken from one home to another home, then into a children's home. So my very early years, those really important years when you need, love and support, weren't actually there. Um, and within the environment that I was growing up, I ended up getting involved in stuff that was quite serious towards me. I never done anything of that nature, but it was just, um, stuff that I wouldn't want anyone to go through. And then, so mentally, I was very weak. I'd been working in the garage sector, um, in a retailer, trying to learn my trade, and it was only until I met my wife and my family, my in-laws then back when I was 2021. We got married. We've had 3 kids. Trying to run a business at that time was very stressful. Had no business acumen at all. I started very young when I was 23, 24 with my first garage. I had no idea really what I was doing. Even when I opened the second one and the third one, I didn't have much idea. I was improving each time, but the stress and the mental um, capacity that I went through was quite large, and it affected my home life, and it affected the way I was with my wife, my kids. And it was only when I got to the age of around, believe it or not, my wife had no idea about what I'd gone through. I gave her snippets, but never really sat down and explained fully in detail.
Right, right.
Well, it was like another world, isn't it? So when I sat down and eventually had the courage, and it's about having the courage and the fortitude to sit there and tell your closest, what I'd gone through, it was like a massive cloud that came over me. I still suffered after that, but I found it a little bit easier to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I'm trying to get over to people here is that it doesn't matter how successful you are, behind that success, everyone's got something underneath their carpet. Everyone. We all have stories. Some are worse than others. I mean, I went through a real torrid time as a youngster, right? And that may be what's made me now in my later part of my life. But once I had the courage to talk and share, it's helped me greatly. And I have to say to you, the last 5, 6, 7 years have been the most at ease for me. Mm-hmm. So imagine I'm 54 this year, and it's taken me till about 48, 47 to absolutely be, I'm good. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't still have my little moments. I deal with them in my own personal way. And when I think what I've created with my home, my kids, my family, and my small network of friends, that is what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%.
And the problem I have is I think for many of us, like me, it's a stigma that mental health, especially in men, oh, it shouldn't happen. You know, we've got this macho in it where, you know, we're not allowed to cry, we're not allowed to hug, we're not allowed, huh?
We're all hard.
We're all hard, and it's not the case.
Not the case at all.
We're big softies at heart.
100%.
We just got to know how to have the courage to show that, and it's very prominent at not only at work but also at home. We take things from home to work. We take things from work to home, like I did, and we have to make sure we separate those. You know, we talk about men's fitness all the time. You know, we want to have big biceps and all that, but it's not about that. If you look at someone like Gandhi, innit? I mean, if you blew him, he'll blow away. But look at the people that he had following him. You know, he never used his strength; he used his other strengths. You know, trust and
compassion and love.
Compassion and love.
Yeah,
and having self-love. Yeah, having self-awareness of yourself. Having self-care will help you deal with mental health, because I think if you're not self-loving yourself, you're doing yourself an injustice and also the people that are around you.
100%, yeah.
And I think it starts with yourself, you know, not harming yourself by staying quiet, loving yourself, and there's nothing wrong in that, and having broad shoulders and being able to tap someone on the back and sit there and just have a chat. And when I do my garage visits, I've had many encounters, Stephen, honestly, where I've gone in and done a Gordon Ramsay, right? And then the owner vanishes, then we meet up somewhere, we go into a private corner, and there's a lot of emotion. And all they need sometimes is there's nothing wrong with cuddling someone.
And I guess a lot of these people are people who are, you know, like you were, sort of running businesses on their own and perhaps don't have the support network at work.
They don't. And who do you go to for business health or mental health? And also it's recognizing how do we help these people recognize mental health? You know, what is it that we're doing? You know, what is the employer doing and where does he go? What's the employer doing for his team? How does he or she recognize mental health, you know? And I think when we think about an organization like Ben, right, which I've supported greatly, I think in the independent sector, it's very rare for people to know who Ben is.
Yes, yeah.
I think in the resale sector, the organization is much more visible. In the independent sector, I feel that it's not so visible. So we try and do that. I try and do that in my, you know, whenever I feel it's appropriate, because there is help there. But the first thing as people, we need to recognize that we have a problem. And that's one thing I knew I had a problem, but I couldn't talk about it.
So if you had the chance to go back and talk to your sort of 16, 17-year-old self, having dealt with what you dealt with, what would you say to them?
I would say to them that however low you are, however black that hole is, however you think you've reached the last stop of that train stop, there is always help. There's always someone out there to help you, but you need to help yourself by having some self-love, as I said earlier, and some self-discipline, It's easier said than done because it took me years to do it. It took me years, but also I think the environment that they're in, it depending on the environment that they're in at that time, whether you can get help or not, and whether the people that they're surrounded with can acknowledge and see that this individual is suffering. So depression could be many things, you know, anxiety brings on many things, you know. It could be that you can't pass an interview. It could be that you can't pass your driving test. You know, you keep trying. So the simplistic things of life that we take for granted especially in the workplace, can lead slowly in little steps into depression and then into mental illness, you know? And another perfect example was one of my youngsters at work. I'm not going to name him. A few years back, one of my top boys, right? Over a few days and a few weeks, his performance deteriorated. He started coming in late, not showing at all. Well, as a responsible human being now, I've recognized it. You know, I've dragged him in. We've had a chat. He's got a gambling problem, online gambling.
Wow. Okay. And
Right?
that's keeping him up at night, I guess.
Keeping him up. But
Yeah.
more worse than that, he's loaned some money from some loan sharks, and he owes £10,000, and they're after him.
Wow. Okay.
He's 22, 23 years old. What do I do? What do I do? He can't tell his parents. He's really really frightened. So what do I do as, first of all, as a father myself of a young lad, and as I felt was a responsible person. So what I did, I went and drew the money out. We called the loan sharks. They came around the garage. We paid them, and I supported that young lad to get on the right track. And now he's flying, and I still stay in contact with him, and he always reminds me of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's. And as an employer, as someone running a business, Stephen, I think it's very important. If you've put yourself in that pedestal, you have to take that responsibility. So these youngsters, when they're in this learning environment, 16, 17, you as a department head or a teacher, you have to take, that's the responsibility you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I mean, I think this is partly why we connected so well, is because, you stand out in terms of that level of compassion and empathy there. But what we were talking about before we started recording was your experience of the industry.
Yeah.
Is not only, do men typically not talk about stuff?
Yeah.
The motor trade doesn't necessarily encourage, talking about things. But you also said that you have seen some practices as you went round the industry.
Yeah.
That kind of made your hair curl. I didn't, even when I had hair, it used to
Yeah.
make me curl. But because I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Okay, so traditionally in a retailer, everyone is incentivized by bonus. Whether you're in sales or whether you're in the workshop,
yeah,
and possibly parts, you're always incentivized by sales.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, the salespeople usually get a low salary and are incentivized to sell, right? And when they sell, they get a bonus, yeah? And when they sell financial products, they get a bonus, yes? Okay. In the workshop, it's all about productivity.
Yeah.
Sell me hours that I can charge for.
Yeah, hours, efficiency.
All that. For me, having now analysed, worked, spoken, seen, I think on a personal level, it's the most draconian way to incentivize anyone to work in our industry.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll give you the reasons why. It causes anxiety from 1 month to the next, which will then cause other stems of mental health increasing without people around them acknowledging what they've just done. You go to, and I'm sure you've experienced this, you go to a retailer at the end of the month, the last day of the trading month, it is absolute madness. Where's that last sale coming from? Because we have to hit bonus.
Yeah.
What jobs can we close, even if we haven't finished them off? Can we close any jobs? And all you see is people running around.
Yeah.
Pressure, stress, close this, close that, ring him.
Yeah.
Because it's the end of the month, end of the month, end of the month.
What does WIP look like, and so on and so on?
So what? So I don't get the sale today, and I get it tomorrow. So what? And can you imagine how degrading it is? that I'm a so-called skilled person, whether in sales, whether in the after sales sector, in the workshop, and I get paid this much, and then get asked to perform to get the extra. Well,
Mm-hmm.
hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. So I'm a heart surgeon, yeah? So you incentivize me, the more heart surgeries I do in a day, I get more money. No, it don't work like that. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Pay these people a reasonable, decent salary.
Yeah.
Appreciate them. Give them the environment to work in and be comfortable.
Mm.
Because a lot of the time, Stephen, and this is factual now, 80% of a technician's productivity is not controlled by him.
Mm. Mm.
And I would suggest that at least 50, 60% of a salesman's performance is not controlled by him or her.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the environment, it's the manufacturer, it's the car that they're trying to, the brand that they're involved in.
Yeah.
In the workshop, a service advisor, there's so many other people that have got to come together to make that person perform.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hang on a minute. If you keep adding pressure on them, and then what you do, you get after sales service managers dragging people in, saying to them, why are you not productive? Why are you not this? Why are you not that? And when they're trying to explain to them that, oh, I've gone to the parts counter, but there's only 2 people working in a parts counter, and there's 5 of us waiting. I'm waiting there for 20 minutes. Or when I go and get the car from the car park, I'm blocked and no one knows who's blocked me and I can't find the key for the other car. Yeah. I've wasted another half an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of people just look at statistics, but they don't physically go and have a look and see what are causing these problems.
Yeah, 100%.
So for me, these are the kind of things that adds pressure. For me, unnecessary pressure. And at the end of the day, if you've employed someone, it means you've employed them on their skill that you want them to do. Why incentivize them? Why say to someone, you know, if you produce this, you produce that, you get more? For me, it doesn't work like that.
And for fear of getting a bit too deep and philosophical about it, if we go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, you know, if we're taking predominantly people who haven't been as academically gifted at school, you know, perhaps they're already not feeling as great about themselves as they could do. 100%. You know, and they're coming into an environment where, like you've just described, and all of the ingredients over a period of 10, 20, 30 years are all there to make these people even more anxious, you know, and slide down into some kind of depression or take up compulsive behaviors like you've described. You know, 100%. Everything's there, isn't it?
And if you think about how, you know, we're losing people, skilled people in our industry. We're not retaining people in our industry. Yeah. And most of the problems that we have, Stephen, we've created them. The aftermarket have created most of these problems. Yeah, yeah. You know, whether it's a fast fit, that you know, you go in for one thing and there's incentivized for you to get other things. We've all heard the horse, so it shouldn't be like that. Let's be a professional organization that support our team members, not only in their technical abilities, and which is very important, but I think the well-being of people is all about people. For me, when I ran Brunswick, it was all about the well-being. I set my stall out. We done something revolutionary. Every Friday, Stephen, my wife, my good wife, used to come in or cook at home and bring them a home-cooked meal every Friday. I made sure that the team sat together. I went downstairs and answered the phones. That's looking after people's health.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well-being.
100%. 100%.
All right? Every day, Lucy will bake cakes for them. We never had a bonus structure, but that doesn't mean that we never recognized their hard work and good work.
Yeah. And I was going to say as well, actually, sorry, that you know, what you were saying there is that, you know, the super tanker of turning things round so that we're not so focused on targets and performance may take a bit longer to shift. But the bit that we can change is the mindset of managers and leaders to do what you've just described, which is recognize their people. And that's the bit also, you and I get passionate about, because that's what we see doesn't happen.
And do you know what, Stephen? It's not all about money.
No.
Some people are really grateful for a thank you.
Absolutely.
Some people are really grateful for well done. Can you imagine what anxiety someone could feel if you're working really hard, you're getting a reasonable salary, yet no one comes up to him or her and recognizes that you've stayed an extra half an hour, or you've gone in an extra 20 minutes, or you've dropped off this car on your own accord to help someone out
Yeah.
by just
Yeah.
saying thank you,
Yeah.
or well done,
Yeah.
or you're magic.
Mm.
And also telling others around their team and sharing that good news.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I excelled, and I assembled a team that in my contracts of employment, I had my vision, I had my values, yes, and we lived and breathed those every day. They were all over the garage in little placards. Everywhere you went, that's our values, right? And having an environment where people want to jump into and work into, I think is the start of looking after mental health, having an efficient and productive business, because without people feeling good, you can't expect them to work good. Having bowls of fruit, allowing them to have a break, no problem. They're not, these people are not silly. Empower them. They're sensible people. You've employed them, for God's sake. You're the one who's put them on the payroll. But what we do, we don't do enough of that. And I think part of the problem in our sector has been that there's too much pressure, too many targets. The job description is not clear enough. We work so many hours, right? And it is just not healthy. And obviously, I experience it a lot going into garages. When we have our classroom full of training delegates, we all share these things, you know, and people, when they leave my training, they feel energized because it's, look, talk about it amongst our peers. You know, I've got a small Facebook group now of all the garage visits and delegates that I have. We're flying as a group. We are powerful. You know, there's 350 of us, whatever there is. I'm hoping we should have had 500 this year, but obviously last year because of COVID. But we are powerful. We are a powerful group. So, you know, you think about this statistic. Suicide in men is the highest death rate under 45.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And about 4 times higher than it is in women.
I mean, that is shocking.
Absolutely is.
One in five, or 1 in 4 people, 1 in 4 men at work suffer from some kind of depression and anxiety. That's mental health.
Yeah.
But we don't say mental health. We just say you're bad at what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Why?
Because we're geared up for managing the performance, aren't we?
Exactly.
You know, we're managing idle time, or we're managing, you know,
useless.
You mentioned CSI. You know, we don't celebrate the fact that we got 98% on CSI. We take someone to task over the 2% we didn't get.
Yeah, and it's inherent. It's been like that for many, many years, Stephen. So for me, in the service sector, it's all about people.
Yeah,
you know, and it all starts. And for me, it all starts from the employment, the recruitment. What's your recruitment strategies? What are you doing to convince people to come and work for you? Yes, of course, money is crucial, but I think the environment that you create, the bonding that you create, the facilities that you promote, the facilities that you have, and my door, Stephen, was always open.
Yeah. Let me bounce something off you, Andy, because we talked about this with a group of leaders across a particular part of the sector a few weeks ago. And, you know, in their efforts to try and understand MENable as a concept and what we were going for, they came up with what you would typically class as some objections, which we dealt with. And one of them was, and forgive the language on this one, but one of them said, if we show that we care too much, our staff will take the piss.
That is the biggest load of rubbish I've ever heard. And if a leader,
you put that a lot more politely than I did.
Well, a load of bollocks then.
Yeah.
And if a leader or a manager said that, they're in the wrong post.
Yeah.
And
this was somebody who owns their own business. So,
well, I'm sorry. Shameful. I wouldn't like to work for that person.
Yeah, shameful. It is.
And I'll tell you something. I never had a problem attracting people because the word got round. I'd love to work for Andy at Brunswick Garage. I'd love to work for Andy at Brunswick. So all these people that struggle attracting people, is these kind of people. You
Yeah.
know why? Because they give them a stick salary. That's all I'm paying for a tech, and that's the bonus. Go in there and do it.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
infrastructure and the environment hasn't been set up for them to perform.
Yeah.
Who has
Yeah.
set these targets? And who's added this pressure? Yeah. And you can never be too nice with people. Yes, there is a line and there's discipline. Yes. And I'm not avoiding that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you create that environment as a leader, and you create the working goodness or badness yourself and no one else.
Yeah,
By
absolutely.
the people that you employ, by the recruitment process, by your values, and how you treat people in an environment on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
100%.
think, I believe, and this is what people tell me, I excelled in that because I realized what one thing in the service sector, it's all about people.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the mindfulness, well-being, looking after them, every morning, especially on a Monday, I would be in there first. The first thing I would do, Stephen, is go and find out how everyone's weekend was. Ask about their children, their pets, their sporting activities. It only takes 3 or 4 minutes. What does that show? It shows that I'm connected to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that empathy that I developed with my people was us being not good, but great together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we had a bad incident, and we had, obviously we had bad moments, we shared them together. And when we had good moments, we shared them together. And I don't think enough of that happens in our sector, specifically in the bigger groups and the bigger national chains when we come to fast fits. Yeah. I have seen some real disasters. And the sad thing about it for me is that there are some exceptional people working in these environments. And you know what happens in the end? Because of the anxiety, because of the stress that's put upon them, because of the lack of support, they leave. They leave our sector.
I saw something on forgive me, I can't remember. It might have been on LinkedIn or Twitter or something like that. But somebody who works for one of these fast fit chains, won't say which one, but they put something on there about needing some help and support. And I then sent that on to someone else and said, have you got any contacts in this organization? Because I'd like to contact them and talk about MENable and what we can do. And this person came back and said, don't bother, they're a complete bunch of Neanderthals. And I thought, and that's no reflection on them because they were just being honest with me. But the point is that, if there's somebody there who perceives this organization as Neanderthals, and they don't even work for them, what must it be like working for them?
Exactly. What chance have you got?
Yeah.
But that thought must have come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not a small seed, is it? I mean, that's quite a drastic thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
To express a feeling, to express about an organization, like whoever they are.
Yeah.
But that's not uncommon. I hear it all day. I hear it every day. Every day I'm helping people. So you know what, for me, it's kindness, it's working environment. What are we doing in our working environments? I go to a lot of, when I spent my time in, and listen, the independents, I'm not saying they're full of roses either. We have our issues, yeah? Most of them, you wouldn't want to take your bicycle in some of the places I visit for repair. It's like going back to the 1960s in some places.
Yeah, yeah.
But at least they've recognized it, have a late, and at least they want to change for the better, right? And some of the bigger environments that I've been to, it's just, you can feel the pressure on people. There's only so much we can take, Stephen, as human beings. There's only, and what we've all got to accept, our thresholds are different. What I suffered I suffered badly in my younger years. Those crucial years, I was abused, both sexually and physically. It's not easy to talk about. It wasn't easy for me to talk about it then. Yeah. I was involved in some really nasty stuff, not because I wanted to be involved in it. I was dragged along,
Right.
and that stayed with me for years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you get nightmares, and everyone's thinking, what's the matter? So they look at you on the outside thinking you're, this big shot, but you're not.
Mm,
Everyone
mm,
inside has got something that they've encountered and experienced, whether it's a long period or a short period, but we've all got something,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And all I want to do is just share now, and we discuss it in the classes that I do, because I think it's important to set the scene, especially when I do the leadership and management course. It's all about that for me. The best CEOs in the country recognize their team members,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it's the stacker at the night shift or whether it's a head of marketing.
Yeah.
You're all level.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it, whether it was my driver or the valeter or the cleaner, they all came into the meetings. Why? Because we're all equal.
Yeah.
And that elevates people and gives people self-respect, to self-love, and hopefully give back to their team members and support each other.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a little story which has just come to me. So about 2.5 years ago, December time, I had a little video message from 5 of my team members who went out on a Christmas drink, and they were on the tube in central London coming back. And it was about a minute long, and there was all 5 of them together. And it was just a little Christmas message to me. They were all together. It was really fun. And they called it the Brunswick Garage Reunion, right? I was unaware that they've stayed. I've left. Some of them have left, gone to new pastures. I was unaware that they've stayed together. And that, to me, I had tears in my eyes. I was so happy. I showed my family, and I was so happy because I thought, look what I've created.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I sort of got back and I said to him, well, that's nice. How comes I wasn't invited to the Brunswick Garage reunion? Anyway, what we did a few months, 3 months after that, was arrange to get together and have a meal out. And we did. And oh my God, we had so much fun together. And then what they exposed to me is some of the photos and things they were getting on within the workshop, laughter, a lot of pranks that they were doing. I had no idea what was going on, obviously, but it made the environment fun for them. And now they felt okay to show me. And I was laughing about, showing me little videos. I thought, gosh, when did you do that? And I didn't see that. Or, pranks on each other. That should be allowed.
Yeah.
Let's be big kids, know our work, know our job descriptions, understand what we're trying to achieve. But that gave me so much. And one of the chaps in there was the chap I told you about who had the gambling issue that we helped out. So that is what it's about. That is what really gives me. That's what drives me.
And make that banter of a sort that that is appropriate enough that you can bring customers in on that as well. Because in my experience, they absolutely love it.
Of course,
100%. They want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
They don't want to be. Yeah, they don't want to be, sort of kept out of some private joke that's going on. They want to be a part of the fun and the laughter and the energy.
It's all that. It's the whole. For me, it's the whole experience.
Yeah.
Yes, let's work hard. Let's stay together. But I think as a manager or an owner or a leader or a department head or whatever you are, whatever category, I think we all have to recognize and accept that we're there to support our people in many ways, and be mindful and generous and kind is the starting block for me.
Yeah.
All right. But also to get team members to help each other when you're not there, because you can't be 24/7. And I think that's what we created at Brunswick. And that's what I try to encourage. There shouldn't be a them and us culture, managers and no, we can't do it without the other. We need bonding, So
Andy, your experience there and your story, that's all awesome. But going forward with the whole kind of mental health in the automotive industry and stuff, one of the things you touched on there was leadership. What I'm finding is that there are increasing numbers of leaders who actually are probably suppressing and repressing their own issues. And as a result, that's causing them to behave in a way that's kind of perpetuating the opposite of
Yeah.
what we're trying to achieve, which you get people talking. So what would be your top tips, to wrap up with for them?
I think they have to acknowledge that they're not superhuman. They're not
Right.
Superman.
Hmm.
They're not Batman who can do anything. They're not one of these, superhero comics. Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Yes.
because they've got the
However,
stripes or the badge, it doesn't.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
We all are at different levels, and we've all got different responsibilities.
Hmm.
But the one thing that we have as humans is that we all suffer anxiety, stress, pressure.
Hmm.
And the moment we accept that in our organization, and if you're a leader of a big group, the more that you can discuss with others and share your anxieties and pressures with your team members, whatever their role is, I think the place that you're in will be a far, far better place.
Yeah.
The moment you stand up as a CEO, general manager, and say, boys and girls, this is what's getting me down. I want to share it with you.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people might be sharing the same experience as them lower down the chain. I don't like to use lower down the chain because for me, people in a workplace are all equal, regardless of pay, status, color, creed. I don't care.
Just have different responsibilities.
And I think the acceptance of that and that self-love that I said to you at the beginning, where we can stand up as human beings and express those thoughts in an open environment, I think is the starting point of moving forward and getting out of this hole. And I don't think there's enough of that. I think it's this macho image. I'm so-and-so. I can't grieve. I can't. No, you do grieve. And when you grieve with your team members if you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I put a vlog out a week or so ago, which pretty much alluded to the fact that are we treating this as a bit of a fad, and are we going to go back to, when we go back to normal, will all of this get brushed under the carpet again? But I have to say, listening to what you've just said there, I think there are more and more growing voices that are saying, no, absolutely not. This is what we've learned through the pandemic, is that people are more important than anything. And we should be working
not
together.
only that, but we're not an island, Stephen.
No.
We're Great Britain, we're an island. Us as individuals, we shouldn't think ourselves as an island. We're not just on our own. Yeah, reach out, man. Reach out. There's a variety of people that can help you.
Yeah.
But reach out to your closest and then spread your wings. When I did that, I found, and it took me a long time to tell my closest friends what I'd gone through. They had no idea. But it was eating me. When I say to you, eating me.
Yeah, I understand.
It was eating me, to go through what I went through, to be left alone, to have no parents at a young age, to go from one place to another, to get abused, week after week, month after month, to get punished. And, it's what worse is it? So you haven't met your monthly target, or you haven't, so what? The place is a bigger place.
Yeah.
And also tackling these problems, there has to be a good structure.
We just got a quick glimpse of your ceiling there.
Yeah, sorry. There we go. Look, he doesn't want to know, does he?
He's got a mind of his own, you see. That's what you've done there, you see.
Tackling these problems have to be done by the team.
Yeah, indeed.
Not just, and don't make decisions. You've gone in one day, you've decided to paint the walls red. Without no consultation. And so a lot of decisions that are made come around because of a lack of communication and a lack of asking people what they really want in their environment.
Yeah.
We go and change their environment, we don't even ask them.
Yeah. And you're spot on. I mean, I do a lot of work with the sort of larger groups and the big PLCs, and and I know that the OEMs will put pressure on them through standards to have a showroom and a premises that looks a certain way. And if you're taken down a route of spending 15 million quid on a brand new place and it's got 38 bays in the workshop, you're going to want a return on that. And I can understand where the kind of, look, this is all about the hours and the sales, and the people bit almost gets forgotten. But the irony, of course, everything we've talked about is if you put people first, put them at the top of the agenda, what you actually need delivered gets delivered.
I remember I was in it. I was in a Volkswagen dealership once, not too far from me, and they were having an audit by the manufacturer, and they put across. I remember liaising with this chap, and they didn't have the bone china cups for the coffee out,
and the handles were facing the wrong way or something.
Yeah, and he started putting crosses on, and or stupid things like that. And I thought, how ridiculous. What about knowing whether someone can answer the phone correctly, or whether the person on the front desk is okay, and have they been given the tools to do their job properly, and are they supported, rather than worrying about what cup I've got out for the coffee for the consumers.
I know what you mean.
I know it's in the overall things we've got to have, but it's all right having the fascia, but if they've got no substance in the back, what's the point?
Yeah.
And another one I remember another one in Thetford had to change his tiles in the workshop because they weren't the right color.
Yeah.
At 28 grand, and he was pulling his hair out.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly what you just said. These standards are set. The pressure's then added onto the finance director and the CEO and the MD, and then it just dribbles down.
Yeah.
And then the department heads come in, and then they're added with the pressure, and then what's been done to them, they do to their individual team members.
Yeah.
Where's the well-being?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
one of our little mantras is that positive employee outcomes equals positive customer outcomes, which equals positive business outcomes. And
1000%.
Too many businesses start that the other way around.
You're absolutely. And as I said right at the beginning and in the middle, for me, it's all about the people. You get the people thing right.
Yeah.
And you give them, as a leader, you give them the environment to be able to do their job, and don't expect too much. For me, is the starting point.
Yeah.
And there's not enough of it. I don't think there's enough of it. Maybe in the last 12 months, it's exaggerated the discussion, but I'm a doer. I don't just talk about it. The thing is, like you said, what's going to happen when we get back to the madness in May, and when all the showrooms and all the garages open, and we do whatever we're going to be doing? And this is not attacking the retailers now. I'm just generalizing. But I gave you some examples that happen in a retailer. In the independent sector, a lot of them don't have these kind of schemes because we're very one low tiered, 5 or 6 techs, owner manager, and a couple of people on the front desk. We don't have that kind of structure, but we have our other problems. And this gradually gets, so for me, it's important. That's why I did the leadership and the management course, to bring some real life to the table. And what you're trying to do, I take my hat off to you. It takes courage to do that. And the more of us that can stand up and not be ashamed that we've all suffered some kind of anxiety, some kind of depression, some kind of, and it doesn't just go away. You can't turn the tap off and on. It's there. It's always around us. And things that happen to us and happen to our closest people and our family or friends will accelerate that in a day or a week. But it's how we deal with it collectively as family members and as team members. And the more we talk about it, the more we say it's not a stigma, and it shouldn't be a stigma. Let's just discuss it. Look at these high-performing individuals, footballers, sportsmen. They all suffer. They have everything they could ever dream of. Us think, I wish I was getting 100 grand a week to play football, or 100, or a golfer or whatever it is. But even the very top people who have the best people around them struggle with this mental health issue. Don't
indeed.
Because the expectations.
Yeah. Well, look, Andy, that's been awesome. I actually could sense a part 2, if not several parts, that you and I could do on a podcast, putting the world to rights and sorting out the
Yeah,
industry as we are.
yeah.
Um, I mentioned to you privately outside of this, so I can edit this bit out if you're not happy with this.
Yes,
But I would very much be honoured if you would add your voice to the MENable movement
of course, I
in
would.
some way.
Yes,
The obvious is to ask you to be an ambassador, so we'll find a way of getting that
yeah,
badge put onto your fleece that you're wearing somehow. So
yeah.
how would you feel about that?
I'd be happy to do that. I would probably like to keep it separate from this.
Yeah, of
I
course.
think
Yeah.
it's its own topic, but 100% yes.
You're a top
Whatever
man.
we can do to promote and help our industry colleagues deal with these kind of issues, I think could only be a positive, mate.
Yeah.
So I'll be happy to engage, and I'd be happy to engage with your bigger client base, with the retailers that we've sort of criticized a little bit, right? But I want to try and criticize in a positive manner for them to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
like
exactly
I said,
what we're
hats
about.
off to Dash, CEO Marshals, Dakash Gupta, who reached out to me today, already spoke to his after sales, because these little things actually cause these stresses that really add anxiety to, my sort of database,
Yeah.
So
that's a reflection of how he works with his teams as well. I mean, I like to think of Dash as a friend of MENable's. He's been very supportive of what we're trying to do, and I know and I see for myself.
But he's the only one.
Well,
he's the only one that's out there.
There's a story in that, isn't it?
Sorry?
There's a story in that in itself.
So, and he has to be applauded. So where we have to say, well done, I think it should be commented on and noted.
Yeah, 100%. Andy, you are a top man, and it's absolutely fabulous to know that you're kind of in the fold with us. That would be amazing. Yeah. We'll keep you posted on what that looks like, and let's perhaps do another podcast at some point in the future.
Anytime, mate. Thank you. Keep well, all right?
Yeah, you're a top man. Love you loads. Take care. See you soon.
See you later.